You're on mute, bro.
Can you hear me? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh my goodness. I was scared that like the system is like freezing up on me over here. I was ready to roll. We got a show. I thought it was about to be kind of ruined, but we haven't tackled the difficulty, but we know how to work it out. So we got a story today. I'm your host, Henry, co-host, Shin JmL, and also none other than St. Patrick. We here. How y'all doing today? How everything going?
Doing great.
You know how it is. It's just another day in the neighborhood.
Okay. Woo. It was.
This seems to
I know it.
be a trending topic tonight, Henry.
Yes. It was sunny today. Good weather. Good weather. I, I'm happy. I can't complain on the weather, and we still going through the Iranian crisis. And make sure everybody check out the new series Ears to the Street. Our first episode dropped. You can check out our website at www.newsroom16.com. You'll catch us on TikTok at newsroom_16. And if you would like to help donate to the channel, you could donate $1 and put donate, and that will be helping St. Jude.
It seems like Henry got cut off, so we gotta have to continue the show. So, like Henry said, make sure you guys make a donation to St. Jude Children's Hospital. You know, helping those kids who are terminally ill and with rare diseases to help them have a fighting chance to have a good quality of life and to be able to go on to become adults like we were all privileged enough to do. You know, I mean, sometimes we have to acknowledge and be able to uplift those who are in bad medical conditions and having some strife in their life. You know, it's not always easy, but you know, we gotta let people know that they're not alone in their struggle and in their fight. So remember to donate to St. Jude's. And now, St. Pat, how you doing tonight, man? You doing all right?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I can't complain, man. The good Lord got me above ground, so that's the best thing I could ever be, man.
Hey, man, and we see you out here. You got that fresh cut, so you know you out here looking G'd up. So for the show, so you know what I mean. You got when people's doing good, you gotta acknowledge them. You know what I mean.
Thank you. Thanks,
And
thanks.
and you know, because you know Henry's having some technical difficulty right now, so we gonna have to extend this intro a little bit until Henry can find his bearings and get his stuff back on point.
Yeah, ain't no problem with that. You know, until he can get which come get better. Cause I'm having technical difficulties myself. I barely can hear. You know what I'm saying? Being outside and so forth. This time right now, I don't know if y'all can hear me. You know, but
Yes, we can hear you.
Now we can
it's a
hear you
little.
crystal clear though. You're good to go.
All right,
Apparently,
so that's pretty good. So, but I'm having a hard time hearing y'all as well. So we go to a place where it's more quiet at.
so this what's going on. Let's
Henry,
drop
you
it like
sound far
that.
away.
It's still acting up. Like shit. I don't know what's going. I don't know what's going on.
Man, you look like you got a black eye, man.
Who me?
Yeah,
Well, right here.
not the other eye.
I don't know. I look like a little raccoon. I don't know. But yeah, man. Let's just drop it. Like the news been going around, and we want everybody to know. On March 25th, 2026, the UN General Assembly adopted a historic resolution introduced by Ghana, co-led with the African Union, that declared the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved African and radicalized chattel enslavement as the gravest crime against humanity. So we are here today speaking on them issues. We have some people happy that an African nation is standing for the plight of African American and other enslaved people in the diaspora of the Americans. And you have some people that say, you sold us. How can the person who stole some goods to somebody come back and say, hey, you owe me money for what I sold you a year ago? It just don't make sense to some people. And you got some people say, hey, we not from Africa. We're indigenous here in America. Or was created in FBA here in America, Foundational Black America. And you got some people like, hey, fix your own problem, Ghana. And you got some people like, hey, Israel, United States, and the other country, I believe Argentina, shows some kind of bias and racial prejudice towards melanated people, and they did not want to support that. And some people like, hey, we stand with that. So we gonna talk it out. What's up, y'all? What's up?
Well, off
Did y'all
rip,
hear
I'm
that?
gonna say, for the indigenous peoples of America and foundational Black Americans, they got a case. You know what I'm saying? But Ghanaians, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? They might have to, if they're trying to prove something, they might have to prove it on for themselves individually. Because based off of the current narrative of transatlantic slavery, that they were part of the logistics. They wasn't part of the enslaved peoples. They were part of the logistical support. They were the ones doing the selling and the shipping out of the peoples into some of the worst slave conditions in world history. As well as, if I'm gonna say this, um, and obviously I'm not on the side of the invaders, the United States, Israel, or Argentina. But here at News, we got to be fair and balanced. So we have to look at it from both sides of the coin here. And the United States and Argentina and Israel voted against it because you have to think about the implications if this type of bill goes through. Because in that case, then that would open the United States up, as well as every other colonized section of North America, to a case of, if they acknowledge that they did the enslavements, the next step would be, as that being the president, would be the indigenous people would be able to bring them to court in order to get them ejected out of the lands and taken out of the lands legally and legitimately, based on the claims that they're not really from here in their point of origin, that they too are actually just immigrants. So wouldn't that mean the immigration laws now apply to them? So therefore, it's going to open for those countries. It would open up some big cans of worms. Also for countries like Dominican Republic, Brazil, Mexico, and and a whole host of other countries where indigenous peoples had their lands took from them in order to create these modern day nations that are just corporations in a guise of land ownership.
So, Pat, your opening statement.
Man, it's a complicated web people weave because the complications go deep, real deep. It goes real deep because when we look at it from the historical standpoint, uh, how do we look at enslaved people? Because the only enslaved people I know of to ever be really enslaved was the Slavs. You know what I'm saying? Not the European. You know what I'm saying? Baltic state Slavs. You know what I'm saying? Well, and my ancestry was taught that we wasn't enslaved. We was prisoners of war, and we got transported throughout the hemisphere. When I mean throughout the hemisphere, you could wind up from North America down to South America, back from South America, back into your own native land on the other side of the creek, you know, from a childhood. That's the type of warfare that they was playing with our people. You know what I'm saying? They was transporting us, prisoners of war. You know what I'm saying? So because the implication of saying that you went to Ghana, you went to these places. Ghana wasn't even a country in the 1700s. That's a European construct that they did after colonialism. So how could those people say that they was afflicted by something that took place that then went in their country, as we know it, their boundaries, their languages, their tribes, wouldn't even exist. They didn't even exist. So all right, so in the time period for 200, 400 years ago, you weren't even a nation. You just became a nation just recently after the Europeans left your country. Well, quote unquote, left your country. So what are you suing for? What what detriment has happened to you? All right, for you to bring this quote unquote legibly lawsuit up to where you could claim that people from your country that you allege had sold into slavery was treated badly into America. Nah, man, that's a psyops. That don't even make sense. You know what I'm saying? That don't make sense at all. All right. Then let's say if you didn't want to, play on people's top, if you didn't want to play on people's top, if you didn't want to play on people's top and say, well, you got people that came from across the ocean when there was millions of people over here already, you know what I'm saying, in the Caribbean, you know what I'm saying, looking like my brother should not, looking like my brother Henry, looking like myself. Already over there in the crib, doing our Arawak thing, you know what I'm saying, doing our chieftain thing, doing our thing. But when pale faced Europeans in the 1400s stepped over here, we greeted them. We said, "What's up, bro?" So how is it that all of a sudden they went to Africa and had to go get people? You feel me? Then history says that it was the slave trade was reversed. That they took us from here and transported us there. You know what I'm saying? To build slave forts for them so they could trade with the indigenous people of that tropics. You know what I'm saying? And they transported us by the thousands to help build those ports. You know what I'm saying? until they could have a foothold in Africa to take over with colonization after they was finished with World War One. So let's get the history right. Yeah. So we gotta look at the time frame, all these things that took place, generations. My generation is one generation removed, like from being human in the United States corporation, right? But my family opted into the corporation. So, you say, what you mean opted in? They got my birth certificate, they got my social, then we play the game. We could go in the stock market, we could gamble, you know what I'm saying? We could go in the casinos, we could roll the dice, we could go in the luxury brand stores and purchase whatever we want without nobody saying anything about our money being faulty or floozy, gazy. We could do those things. You know what I'm saying? Our country is running well so forth, but there are power structures that want to destroy it, you know, cause this chaos and destruction. You know what I'm saying? Destroy our hemisphere as we used to know it as a confederacy. You know what I'm saying? And break it down back into its smaller states. You know what I'm saying? Instead of unification, you know what I'm saying? Diminishes, you know what I'm saying? And instead of a Mayan empire or Aztec empire, they want to diminish us down into a kingdom, a little tribe, a little family, little feudal little systems. Instead of looking at us as the great nation that we once was. You feel me? And the great people that we once was. So that's my concept of it. You know what I'm saying? Of how foreigners are trying to dictate what's going on in the greatest nation in the world.
See, Pat, all I can do is reaffirm what you said with evidence, back you up, because I've been saying this the whole time based off my own lineage. I'm Cape Verdean, and I tell a lot of people that Cape Verde is not built mostly off Africans like they try to tell us in the initial initiation of the establishment of the island by the Portuguese. They actually took indigenous Americans over there to establish the island first. And then they started bringing West Africans in after they had built up, like you said, the ports, after they had built up the fortresses, after where these Europeans would be able to feel safe and they would feel defended, because you already know, because that how it is every day as being melanated folks in America. These non-melanated folks have a natural intimidation factor. They have fear, you know. So we know how. So if they got fear now, we can only imagine back then when they had far less security. And not only that, but like I said, keep saying, everybody knows that that you owe it, that how bloodlines work. You always go back to your point of origin. You know what I mean? And Cape Verdeans have a greater population in between Boston and Providence, Boston, Massachusetts, and Providence, Rhode Island, than the whole population of the island of Cape Verde. So having that understanding that they keep telling us that we're really from that island, but doing my research and my family history, my family used to be whalers and longshoremen. You know what I mean? Out here in the Rhode Island coast. Whalers and longshoremen. The reason why they would go to Cape Verde was for in the wintertime up here in the north, it would turn to the wintertime. So they would follow the whales to Cape Verde. You know what I mean? During the winter in the New England area. And then the Portuguese settled over there, and then so they took the indigenous and hired them to help them build it up, and then they started to then like they always do up in America with all the tribes, because at that time we was the Algonquin nations, so Wampanoag, Narragansett, Massasoit, so on and so forth out here from the New England colonies, right? When they colonized over here, though, what they did was they, like you said, oh yeah, they're going to take us transcontinental. We got to go into the doctrines. We got to go into the doctrines of the colonizers, the invaders. So I'm an Algonquin. So what they would do, me and Henry been over this on a whole nother show, that they'll take me and they'll trade me for you, St. Pat, because you're from New Orleans, down there in New Orleans. And then they'd bring you up here to Newport, Rhode Island, and they would bring me down there to New Orleans, and then they would sell us in those areas because they know I speak Algonquin, so I'm not going to be able to talk to anybody or plot nothing out there. I can only speak English to communicate. And you would only be able to do the same thing out here in Rhode Island. So then not only that, then they would take us to Cape Verde, west coast of Africa, and sell us over there, which we got evidence after the Civil War, when the establishment of the country of Liberia, where they brought indigenous Americans to Liberia in order to perpetrate the fraud that we're all descended out of West Africa, Pan-Africanism, because Pan-Africanism perpetuates supremacy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say the name because they might try to play us with a flag. That type of supremacy. And because we all know, Henry, for a fact, melanated people are indigenous to every continent on the planet.
Yes, yes.
So, you know what I'm saying?
Let me play the video real quick.
All right, go ahead.
Let's give a little content of what we speaking on. We have the president of Ghana.
Here in the United States, Black history courses are being removed from school curricula. Schools are being mandated to stop teaching students about the truth of slavery, segregation, and racism in American history courses. Books about those topics are being banned in schools and public libraries. Museums, art centers, and other institutions whose budgets rely in any way on public funds are being prohibited from scheduling exhibitions and programs or from displaying materials promoting racial awareness or Black history. Much like the law that was put in place to regulate the punishment of the enslaved in Barbados, these policies are becoming a template for other governments as well as some private institutions. At the very least, they are slowly normalizing the erasure. They are slowly normalizing erasure.
United States obviously voted no to Ghana's reparations resolution that they presented to the UN. And I don't know what was in the full docket, but I guess it made it seem like slavery was kind of an atrocity of, I guess the Americas or maybe the United States between just the 15th and the 19th century. And what they were saying was slavery started before the 15th century and it continued after the 19th century. So basically, they came in to a business operation that was already going on. Ghana was already, it wasn't even established as Ghana, but that region of West Africa was already engaged in slave trading. So for them to ask for reparations, it's like, how are you going to ask for reparations for an operation that you were involved in and continue to this day to still be involved in? It's still slave trading going on, not just in West Africa, but North Africa, other parts of Africa. So it just doesn't, it's just like, come on now, it doesn't add up, doesn't even make sense. And then my thing is, y'all weren't even the actual victims of it. The victims were the people who were actually trafficked from that area and brought to the Americas. The descendants of those people would be the ones who would be owed the reparations, not the people that sold them into it or who was doing business with the colonizers to sell them into it.
See, and this goes back to what St. Pat said, right? Exactly, Henry. We are not enslaved peoples. We was never enslaved peoples. That's why when you go look it up in the Library of Congress, and that's why they're removing it out of everything. Because it is a misnomer. It is misinformation. We are an occupied people, prisoners of war, and this is well documented. It's well documented from the Library of Congress. We are prisoners of war. We are not enslaved people. Like St. Patrick said, there's only one people on the earth that can claim the name slave, and that's Slavic people. And we know those are the people who come from Eastern and Southeastern Europe, the area we was just talking about the other day in the Iranian conflict, areas, the Slavics like Azerbaijan,
the
Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, you know what I mean? Romania, Armenia, etc.
Serbia.
It's Serbia, right. See,
Yeah.
Henry, you're on point with it.
Yeah.
You know what we talking about. Those are the people that if they take a DNA test, it's gonna come back slave or Slav. You understand what I'm saying?
Let me cut this up like I'm cutting tuna real quick. Not the tuna in the can. You feel the fine tuna. So we have Ghana and many other countries. They Ghana have formally prohibited slavery. And it is illegal. However, modern form of exploitation is still existing in Ghana today, such as forced labor, human trafficking. It still exists. The police force is weak. They cannot really solve them issues. We have Ghana still getting exported from Europe. Europe is still exporting the resource. We still have people from Ghana fleeing Ghana, coming to the countries that Ghana deemed cause of the slave trade. So we got Ghana that still have a form of slavery roaming around. We have Ghana, which wasn't a country, a nation, or a united people at the time of slavery. Ghana got created by the colonizers of that area.
Henry, we should just
And also and
hold on, Henry, let me
also
say this real quick. We should stop calling it slavery, right? We gotta just call it what it is in the modern terms because we're more educated now, right? And we have a higher level of comprehension. So we're gonna call it what it is: transatlantic human trafficking. We're not gonna call it that because we just established that in order for it to be slavery, you gotta be from Eastern or Southeastern Europe, a Slav. So it has to be only human trafficking. It cannot be slavery.
the human trafficking that is said to be is impossible. It's impossible because it took the European 100 years to actually able to go into the interior of America. The first prisoners of war who would traffic from one location to another location was the native of this land, which is called America.
You mean the indigenous, not the natives?
We cannot deny the history of the first people that got put into forced labor, prisoners of war, got trafficked. We gotta go ahead and wake up that that's why United States like, hey, there's a lot of facts finding. It's a lot of stuff that Americans say we not signing on to it.
Henry, let me prove your point for you. Let me prove your point for you real quick. Let me prove it. Let me give you a question. Let me ask you a question, right?
Okay, let me finish this part. The three countries that sustained from voting against this resolution. I'm gonna give y'all all the motivation. I'm gonna give y'all all the reason why they didn't do it. Argentina is a friend of Donald Trump. They able to make money by selling beef to America. Beef. Argentina is also the nation where a lot of German fled after World War II. Argentina also the place that they believe the Führer of Germany fled to. That's here and there, not trying to get too much into that. But I do know that Argentina is a slacky and they will follow America by the limb. And when it comes down to Israel, Ghana owed them money. Ghana owed Israel and China money. So when it comes down to America not trying to pay nothing to no nation that did not exist at that time. And it was something that was done before this government even have the consciousness, awareness to treat us as human beings.
You got to say it like it is, though, Henry. Hold on. Let's say it like it is. Let's clean that up real quick. Ghana wasn't a nationality yet. It wasn't because you know what I mean? It doesn't matter about being a country. It's about your nationality. You know what I'm saying? We know this part because that's the international law. They don't go by country. They go by your nationality. Are you a national? You know, like me and you, we are United States. We might be United States citizen. We might be United States citizen, but in the international court, because we're United States citizen, we would be considered United States nationals because we're from the United States. Ghanaians would be considered Ghanaian nationals because they're from Ghana. But like I was going to ask you, Henry, because I ask Africans this question all the time from various countries. And I asking you because obviously we're indigenous Americans. So we're going to speak on it. And then we have to question the FBA, Foundation of Black Americans, on this too. If you are claiming to be from West Africa, now, according to what Henry just said, St. Patrick just said, that woman in the video who's being very credible with what she said just said, Ghana wasn't even a country yet, which means Nigeria, etc., was not established countries yet. So on and so forth. So, therefore, you have to say this one question. Henry, if somebody is claiming to be from African descent, what tribe are they from? You can't just say you're from Africa. That's a whole continent. Remember, my stepfather's Arab, and he's from Egypt. So he's from Africa. But he's not sub-Saharan African, though. He's an Arab.
some people
So
might
you have to understand that question. What
some people
tribe
might
in
wait
Africa did you come
some
from?
people might look at that as saying it's the Paulus thesis. What is the Paulus thesis? Um, uh, heliport, Heliopolis, that Opolis, the populace, or you could say a city. What is a city? Out in the rural area, you find family structure, but in the city, you find a mixture of different families.
I
So
understand that.
wait, they that's what America put forth, but we see something different. What is that different? The difference is that a lot of the nation in West Africa would have never been founded because a lot of their founding fathers was because shipped, they trafficked human beings from America into West Africa. That's the part that they don't tell you. I
And
understand
that's
that.
how they became. Hold on, Henry, let's finish it off. And that's how those tribal peoples, right? We're talking about, like, if we're talking about Nigeria, we're talking about Yorubas, we're talking about the Igbo, we're talking about, if we're talking about Ghana, we're talking about the Twa people, the Tree. So these are tribes, they're not countries. So when we went over there, when they brought us over there, it was our ideology of the populist city state structure that brought them, city state country, right? You know what I'm talking about? Structure
Yeah.
that they had to establish to be in order, right? To be in order, to be considered in a collective in the world stage at that time because of colonization and industrialization, economic markets, etc., which we're still doing today, right? Like you just said, Ghana's over here trying to hustle a check for a time period where they wasn't even Ghana. And it doesn't make sense unless, like Henry said, you look at it as they're trying to pay some bills. They're trying to hustle a way to pay some bills. And then, like the lady said in the video, you got to be hard up to try to be so fraudulent as to claim that you, even in the current narrative, are owed a reparation when you were the seller of the human traffic. You cannot, that's like that, Henry, come on, bro. That's
Yeah, I
like
don't.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
That's like Coca-Cola trying to sue us for reparations for buying Coke.
it's like you sell me a donkey. I use that donkey. I die. My son never used the donkey. Or but the donkey have other donkeys. He got kids from his time of living. And you come back and tell me because my father sold you that donkey and you done what you please with that donkey, I would like you to pay me for what you did to that donkey. Like it's
Henry, it
weird.
just sounds goofy.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's also to the point that when we look at the history of the Spaniards when they came to America, We pay attention to what the Spaniards say. We look at a key factor. The natives of America have cities. They was mound builders. The biggest mound city was in Louisiana. I'm not just saying that because I'm from Louisiana, but I know the history. We got the Cashadas. We got the Thibodeau. We got a few tribes in Louisiana still roaming, still living. It's to the
Same thing out
point.
here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, it's to the point that these people had cities. They wasn't living in no make believe teepee. They lived in cities. They went to war. They became prisoners of war. They got shipped out. The women and the children stayed. The women became cooks and nannies. The kids was trafficked and had to work, forced labor, exploitation. They had to enter into this caste system. So what happened to them? What happened to them? The people that they had a paper genocide towards them. Their blood is still flowing. It's still flowing. What happened to the King Philip War and the prisoners of war of that war? Common sense like that.
You're talking about the prisoners of war from out here in Rhode Island and Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Because Prince Philip was chief medicament of the Algonquin people out here. He was the chief of all the tribes, even though he was really from his direct tribe was from the Wampanoag tribe out here in Providence, Rhode Island, which all of his original lands is now owned by Brown University.
Yes, yes.
And not only is the lands owned by Brown University, but they actually have in the Brown Library, they have antique and archaic documentations and scribal histories, as well as myths and legends that were written by our people before the colonizers came, and they were used as educational material to teach the youths who was coming up in those times. But it's not always open to the public. But if you go to Brown University, I'm pretty sure that you're able to see it. But those things are in secure glass cases, which you already know, Henry. That's what they do. Isn't that they do what they do with all our artifacts? Didn't they do that to y'all down in Louisiana? They took all your ancestors' records and all of their paperwork and everything that they had already accumulated and built for themselves when it comes to literature, and then they locked it up in a museum somewhere.
Facts.
Which proves that one not from Africa too. Remember, that's why they lock these documents up too, so people can't see them in the public. And then, like they tell us when you go in the museum on the big signs, no flash photography, no videography, cameras are not allowed after this point, because they don't want you to be able to have physical evidence that the so-called African American Negro is not from Africa. They don't want us to be able to prove that, because then it destroys all of their narratives about us being enslaved people, and it perpetuates the narrative, the true narrative, which is that they raided our lands, invaded our lands, and took us hostage as prisoners of war, which we're still being held to this day as prisoners of war. We're just not in chains.
Can you see that?
Yeah, you need me to read it?
Yeah.
However, earlier pioneers like W.E.B. Du Bois and William Leo Hanbury,
Wait. Start right here. Let's go.
Melville Hershkovitz is widely considered the father of African studies in the U.S. Ain't that ain't that peculiar, Henry?
Yes.
We already know who he is. Ain't gonna get too deep, but the last name says it all. I don't think he's African, but establishing it as an academic discipline at Northwestern University in the early 20th century. However, early pioneers like W.E.B. Du Bois, William Leo Hanbury spearheaded the African history in the late 19th, early 20th century, with formal Black studies departments emerging in the 1960s, such as the one led by Nathaniel Hare.
I'm going to say this. One, West Africa did not have an indigenous writing system. Some nation was able to translate and transliterate and write Arabic. Not all the tribes and kingdoms in them area was able to write Arabic. So they did not have a native tongue to translate on paper.
You mean a text corpus, right?
That is key, because when a time W.E.B. Du Bois and William Leo Hansberry start coming around, most of them so-called African nations did not have no history to even give to anyone.
And not only that, Henry,
it was created
we see.
By
hold on, let me say this too, Henry. We know these people, Du Bois and Hanbury, were also Prince Hall Freemasonry, the Boule. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's well-known facts that those two men are part of the Freemasonry, Prince Hall, and the Boule, which are perpetuating the system of oppression because of their falsification and promotion of the historical narrative that we come from West Africa, when what you just said is the whole kit and caboodle. Because how was they living in the early 1920s, 1930s? And if we go look up when's the establishment of Ghana, it's going to say something about the late 1800s. So you're telling me that would be the equivalent of trying to speak on a whole history of 1948 Israel in 1745, Henry, when it was established today, when we in 2026, if we're trying to talk about, yeah, we're going to do Israel Israeli history in the Middle East 1745. We know that that's not possible. They wasn't even over there in 1745. And here we go. And see, and then this is Henry, and who did you say these people owe money to?
To Israel.
And where is this gentleman from? Who is his, what's his descent?
He's a convert.
He's a convert. So it's looking like a 360 deal to me, if you ask me, Henry.
So let me explain this right here real quick. Columbus University. Here we go. We got Northwest University. These in the University of Chicago. These universities was founded, orchestrated, and built with people in mind like Carnegie, Rockefeller. These was supporting these programs after the Reconstruction. Look, this guy was born in 1895, during the years of Reconstruction, where you go from a nation. Let's go here real quick.
Henry, he was born during the time of the World's Fair, big dog.
Yeah, so let's drop the truth like this. You going from an era where you don't know no leisure. They do not have no lecture of where these people came from. Oh, we got these people from this spot right here. To turn around and say, hey, we got some study, and these people, this is their culture.
Because, Henry, you got to remember, they established these, let's call it pseudo histories, right? They established these pseudo histories to be politically correct. Go back and see what his birthday was, 1880s. That was the World's Fair. What were they doing during the World's Fairs from 1880, right, all the way up to 1930? What was they doing? They were reestablishing the new narrative propaganda after the collapse of the Tartarian world civilization period that was at that time. Because see, what I've been learning lately from reading up on these historical accounts is they tried to add 1,000 years onto history, when really this might shock a lot of people who don't know this. In the 1990s, when we was all children, technically it wasn't the 1990s, it was actually 990. And the one that we have during the colonial period wasn't really a 1. It was an I standing for in the year of our Lord, which is a known fact throughout private education circles. That's a known fact.
Let me say this. If I take a kid and put them in an area where there's no cell phone, he was born with no cell phone. He don't even know the word cell phone. Would his kids and grandkids talk about cell phone if that area don't have no mention of cell phone?
No, not even.
So now let me explain this. Melville. He studied how some aspect of African culture and tradition was expressed in African American culture in the 1900s. 1900s. People gotta understand this. Slavery ended in the 1800s. You got some people who was here since before the American Revolution. What kind of tradition or variable is they trying to push on these people? This is hundreds of years in the making. People gotta understand this. You have pictures. You could take pictures in the 1700s when you could have a certain type of mirror and it draw it in such a way that you can actually see people in a good
Henry,
performance.
you got to just say this, right? It's the same way that a Polaroid instant camera works. It's just the Polaroid camera works faster.
Yeah, so with these evidence, they don't show no evidence of no enslavement, no kind of evidence of this. The so-called boats that they supposed to this was so funny. There's supposed to be boats that they transport people here to America. It's cartoon pictures.
And then hold on, Henry. Let me add the parallel. But however, because we know these people, we know the invaders. We've been with them a long time. But however, they got the boats. They got the real ships, Henry, that their ancestors came here from Europe on still. Am I right or am I wrong?
Right.
So where's the slave ships at? You know they're not gonna listen. If they got these, which I believe is staged pictures, Hollywood staged pictures, psyops of the slavery when they show the slaves with the whooped up backs and all that type of stuff. Now I'm not saying that people wasn't prisoners of war and they wasn't going through it. However, there is evidence that a lot of these photos is fabricated like Hollywood films would be presented to us. Think about it, Henry. So let's go back to your example with the people with the cell phone who never seen a cell phone before, right? And they lived in an area where there's no cell phone. So if that's true, Henry, if I showed them a video of Batman, right? The movie, a real life, Ben Affleck or something like that type Batman, right? Christian Bale. I showed him that. I say, yo, in New York City, look, this guy's in New York City. He's fighting crime. And this is what he's doing. And I showed him the movie. Henry, aren't they going to believe Batman's real?
Yeah.
Because it's a real life production. They don't know that it's Hollywood. They don't know it's a film. They don't know it's a movie. You know what I mean? Especially if it's doctored up to look like we're on the news. Batman came today and saved 15 people from a burning building. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going to know that Batman is a fictional character. they're going to think Batman's real. So, Henry, we're living in 2026. We're living in 2026. So, with that same logic, right? The same logic we just used with the Batman.
Yeah.
If they show you some pictures or some film and tell you these people is the Native Americans, and they showing you these Siberian folk, but you, being from the bayou, was raised to know indigenous folk don't look like that. So you already know, oh, this is a play. They're trying to play my mind with these pictures of these European or Siberian descendants cosplaying our ancestors. After they done looted them, after they done took them and unalived them and stripped the bodies of everything they had in order to perform these narratives. And a brother just made a good example earlier to comparison, right?
Yeah.
Now, Henry, if we look at these people who they call the so-called Native Americans, not the indigenous, the so-called Native Americans, if we look at their diet, right, who would we say that their diet is the most comparable to?
So I'm gonna say this. Who likes chicken? We have a stereotype where it's not people from the continent of Africa, but African American is looked at as a stereotypical person of eating chicken. And it is known that in America they had a domesticated version of chicken. Now, when it comes down to cornbread, when you go Google, I'm about to type in Google right now, cornbread, and we about to see the type of picture that they show with cornbread.
And Henry, let me just ask you a general question while you're doing that. Does
Yeah.
soul food in itself, right? Does that reflect West African culture?
No, because even some West African culture would not be around today if it wouldn't be from American influence. Where we got fufu, the fufu. A lot of the recipe that go into fufu originated here in America.
And
So
Henry,
do
now, hold
we?
on, let me ask another question because I got to do a follow-up question for you, right? Because it's very important. So now that you established that, right? Now, Henry, does West African culture and African American culture, do we reflect the same culinary techniques?
Repeat that.
Do we reflect the same culinary techniques?
No.
Meaning, do West Africans and African Americans cook food the same way?
No, because
So that's also an indication of separation, not not symbiosis. That is not that's showing that it cannot be the same people because the techniques wouldn't be different. It would be similar. That's simple forensic science. So we have to understand that, and then let's go to the cornbread. Show them the answer, Henry.
So when you look up cornbread, this what you find. In a lot of homes, a lot of African American, what they call African American, American Black, American Negro, the American colored person create cornbread. Let me show a close-up picture. Let's zoom in. You see the cornbread?
Of course.
It making me hungry. I'm being a big back right now.
Hey, Henry, see this? Hold on. This reminds me of that meme joke, Henry, that we know Africans wouldn't know nothing about, bro. The Malcolm X meme from Denzel Washington movie. When the juice from the greens touch the cornbread, and then he throws the glasses on the table.
Yeah, you got a lot of food and produce that was produced here in this land. The people who know better how to grow tobacco, which grow in this land, is the people of this land. You don't get no people from a whole different land like Ghana and teach them. It don't make sense. You got these people from a whole different land that you trying to traffic to a whole nother land that don't understand your language, while you fighting some other people in this land, from this land, and they don't understand your language. It
Right.
don't make sense. I want to play this video right here so we could see what some other people think of this matter. Here we go, right here.
Anytime an African starts talking about reparations, just say, well, how come you ain't got the colonizer out of your homeland? Fam, do you understand this? The same people sitting there talking about reparations are the same people who are currently colonized on their home turf. Do you want to go there, family? How the hell are you going to get reparations when in reality, you're still the enslaved African? You're enslaved education, healthcare, economically. You're enslaved physically, mentally, spiritually. Y'all still got them big ass white Jesus statues floating around. Fam, they're all out of it. FBA, Foundational Black Americans, we as a lineage, heritage, and culture, we're moving independent of everybody else. We're separate from everybody else. I know they be running around here talking about some y'all trying to divide things. No, we've already been divided and we ain't trying to be connected. It's FBA over here. We don't give a damn. We're moving without anybody. They laid down all these reefs at a foundational Black American slave site. Ain't no damn enslaved African, because the real enslaved Africans are people who are in Africa enslaved right goddamn now, because Mr. Muhammad still got you in shackles. So don't get it twisted, fam. How can somebody who still has active current slavery of their own people talk over that but worry about us? Think about that, brothers and sisters, kings, queens, goddess, and gods. Africa right now has slavery.
The main focus is Africa is not our big homie. Ghana is not our big homie. You cannot participate in the slave trade 400 years ago and think that you're going to spin the block and get a check. It don't work like that. I know it's tax season, but no, it don't work like that. You don't get a refund, you dig? Yeah. One of y'all need to send some of y'all representatives over here across the street. You already traveled across the ocean. What more is it to cross the street and to come holler at the ancestors that you sold? You sold us and then you fumbled the bag, you dig? And now y'all over here trying to get a check because the Chinese and Israel, they calling for the debts to be paid. Y'all done fumbled the bag and now y'all trying to get a check. It ain't gonna work like that.
They're trying to pay off your IMF loan.
Yeah, your little IMF bill and all of that stuff.
We gonna clear your legal debt off my ancestors.
You heard that? Hey, yo, you wanna speak, family? Yeah, you good?
Stop running around in private jet and feed your people.
Yeah, Ghana's doing bad, man. Y'all over there eating dirt cookies.
But your president, your leaders fly around
cats and dogs, all types of barbecues, bushmeat, leopard legs and whatnot. Y'all, you did? Yeah. And then you got your little plantation protectors. Hey, yo, Jumaane Williams, where you at, yo? Hey, yo, check this out, right?
Where the fuck is Muhammad?
We not voting for none of y'all niggas.
Corruption cannot heal corruption. Corruption can't heal corruption. I'm talking to everybody now. Before I talk to everybody, before we get further, with your help, please hit the thumb up button, hit the like, make sure you share. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscription button and also hit the bell for notifications so when we go live, you'll be updated. When
Yes,
we
sir.
upload a short or video, you can be updated. Please hit the like. Please hit the like to help the algorithm push us for more people to see our content and get the message. So now going into the message. A lot of things that we've been speaking on, we've seen in other people's voices, the rhetoric out there. Some things we might differ on opinions, but a lot of things we question. We might be leaning towards the same thought pattern. Some of us fully don't understand the situation. Some of us do understand the situation. Some of us is silent. Some of us is speaking. I'm like this. United States of the clearing out of African American history, the contributions and stuff like that, I think some of the history is not true. Make-believe history, propaganda. Some of it do need to go. Some of it we need to save. If we
Like, you're right, Henry, because if the things that we need to save, it has nothing to do with slavery. Let's put that one right there. Because slavery is too far back for us to verify. There's nobody who's old enough that was living in that time period from that time period to verify any of the claims. So anything and everything could be lies, fabrications, and propaganda, because there's no one who's alive to verify, yeah, that's true, that happened. But what we can verify in the history is the Civil Rights the Indian Civil Rights Act of 1964. Yes, people, that's the real name of it. Go look it up. Henry's put this up several times in posts and in the videos, that it's the Indian Civil Rights Act of 1964. It's not the African American, Negro, or colored Civil Rights Act of 1964. You need to go look that up. That's another thing. They don't teach the correct history in school either. And we can verify them claims. Come on now, we could even go to people that are famous that we know. President Obama said he was at Selma. You got what's his name? From New Hampshire, Bernie Sanders, he got pictures, he was at Selma. Joe Biden was there, so on and so forth. We got video footage of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Muhammad Ali. We've seen this. We got the videos of them sicking the dogs on people. We got videos of them spraying the people down with hoses. we got these videos of Jim Crow South, etc., verified claims, because there's a lot of people who's alive today that was able to verify the claims based on the fact that if they were there or they were eyewitness to the developing stories, the same way we're witnessing the developing stories in Iran unfold today, or the Afghanistan war, or the Iraq war, or 9/11, or the year 2000, New Year 2000 transition, Y2K. Look up, wait a minute, hold on. The millennials might not know nothing about no Y2K. You know what you need, Henry? See how quick the verification goes away? You take away our generation and you only get these millennials and these Generation Z, and then you say something about Y2K to them, they would never even know what you're talking about. What's Y2K? It does that. You mean to tell me that you guys thought that the computers was gonna reset and destroy the world because everything was gonna get shut down? Because when it went to the year 2000, you know what I'm saying? They don't even know about that, Henry. We lived through that. You know what I'm saying? This is what we're talking about. These are called verified claims. They're verified because we have multiple eyewitness accounts, multiple people who lived through the experience, and these are first person eyewitness accounts, which is what, Henry? Isn't that legal in the court of law? First person eyewitness account statements are considered legitimate evidence, correct? You're on mute.
Yes. Before we go any further, we had 16 people seen the show. Right now we sitting at one like. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure y'all hit the like button because it really help us out. We not asking for a lot. We just asking for you to hit the like button. Yeah, so it's a complicated situation, but I think this is something that we the people of America for our reparation, that's something we got to be able to go to our government and have a real heart to heart conversation. That's something we would have to instill into our children to fight for. And we would have to fight for. And there's also the other thing is this right here. If it do have reparation, a lot of people going to be shocked to see that they're going to have some Hispanics coming to get reparation. It's going to be some Latinos getting some reparations, some white people getting some reparations. Some people are going to be mad. They're going to be hating. They're going to like, how that YT person getting reparation? Why that Latino person getting reparation? Why that Asian person getting reparation? Because we are living in the I don't know how to call it, harmonious or something like that society where we
A
mingle.
felonious society.
Yes, what we mingle with different races. I know family members right now, people that I love and care about, really deeply care about, have a YT baby mama. Their children is mixed. And I know people as friends that got mixed relationship. Latino, different culture, different ethnic groups, different racial makeup. But Hey,
Same thing out here, Henry. But it's like a lot. It's a lot of you know, indigenous people mixed with Italians.
yeah.
So
So
does that mean? Hold on, Henry, because we gotta prove your point, right? So does that mean when if the reparation goes through, that there's some people who's gonna be the descendants of Italians that's gonna be able to get the reparation?
yeah,
Of course. If their kinfolk, if one side of their family was considered to need to get the reparation, if they're half Italian, does that mean that automatically excludes them from the reparation? No, it's not gonna, because then that wouldn't be fair.
yeah, because we got a lot of musicians back in the day, a lot of musicians in this modern time of era. We got not just musicians, we got regular, ordinary people on a day to day basis going to date, love who they want, and now when it comes down to America. I think now is not the time to be bothering America. Like America, United States, kind of like, hey, we are at a pivotal moment of history. We could fall, or we could become triumphant, or we could enter into a new era with Iran. United States is at war. So it would be hard and pressed for Donald Trump to say, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and pay re- restitution gonna pay any money to anybody when right now they trying to get money from Congress to pay for this war.
Right.
This is the wrong time. Yeah.
Not only that, Henry, how about this? How about this? Let's say the time window, right? Because so let's because it's a world court, right? It's a world court.
Yeah.
So it goes by legalities, right? Wouldn't you say, Henry, based off of what you was just talking about with the timing and we're at war with Iran, we just got out of the war with Iraq and Afghanistan, a 20-year war with Iraq and Afghanistan, we're sitting on a $38 trillion deficit. It's not a time for America to be able to resolve this debt. If we're being hypothetical here. We're not saying that America has a bill due. You know what I'm saying for this right now. We're saying hypothetically based on what the world court wants, right? So, first of all, if I was America and I'm playing devil's advocate here,
Yeah.
I would call on the world court for statute of limitations, number one. Because you're asking me to pay for some crimes that happened 200 years ago. If you ask me, there was a window of opportunity for reparations. It's already passed the greatest window of opportunity. And I would say that window of opportunity was from 1994 to 2001. That was the greatest window of opportunity. Because you know why? Because we all know, everybody who came from the 90s, we all know that Bill Clinton left George W. Bush with a $3 trillion. I'm going to say it again one more time. A $3 trillion surplus in the American economy. This is a well-documented fact. A $3 trillion surplus. That was the best time in the time window to try to do something like this, because then America was able to afford it. They could pay. They had the ability to pay it. Now, after post 9/11, America has not had 1 year where it has been out of debt. The debt has only gotten successively worse. And I don't want to hear the Republican Democrat BS debate. Well, it's because the Democrat program did it. Listen, George W. Bush put us in a 20-year war that was a money pit. And now Donald Trump is asking for $200 billion off of God knows how much he spent so far of unsanctioned funds. And Joe Biden done paid the whole Ukraine war tab for Ukraine. So if you're asking me, Henry, from a logical standpoint of understanding of a human being, America's too broke to pay it back. Even if we get a judgment, America is too broke to pay it back. Especially not at the rate that I said the other day, Henry, from that video from what John F. Kennedy said, where every indigenous family in America is owed about 12 bars of gold, which 1 troy ounce, which would be the equivalent in dollars of $12 to $24 million. Each. Remember, each, Henry, each.
No, they're not trying to pay that.
Listen, exactly. But Ghana's over here trying to get some money siphoned.
We got somebody coming in saying something. Let me
all right.
Comment on the screen. He got something to tell you, JmL. You got it?
Yep, I read it.
Okay, this is the last thing right here.
You know what I gotta say? You know what I'm gonna say, Henry?
Break it down.
You can create all the new currency you want in the cash system, but you have to back it with something to give it cash value, to give it a value. You have to back it with something. You can't just print money up, even though the government does print money up. I'm not saying they don't. But, however, they would have to account for where the money is coming from that they're creating. They can't just create the money. You know what I'm saying? And see, and then they say give back the land then. See, that would, now honestly, so see, now honestly, that is the most appropriate answer to give us back the land. But we also know that that's impossible in a certain aspect too, because the descendants of the Europeans, the modern day Europeans already said they don't want them back. So where would they go?
And I also understand this, that we got some scheming people. We know Donald Trump grandfather came here and became a register and took land, a land prospector, taking land, making people sign over their land. That's what we have to watch out for. If we get land from the government as restitution and still enter the system, we got to worry about the mortgage system. We got to worry about taxes. We got to worry about the law system, because you wind up go to jail, you get out, that land is taken. So I think it would have to be something like how the Kurds had it, how certain tribe have it, that the land is what they call the land, autocratic or something like that,
Yep.
where you could your ethnic group, your group control the land, but it's still part of the country as a whole.
United States.
Yeah,
But
that's
then,
what it
Henry,
is.
we got to watch out. Hold on, Henry. Let's go into that, right? Because they
Yeah.
said, so give us land. So yeah, but guess what? They already got 3 ways to cipher us out of the land once we get on it too. Eminent domain, right? Eminent domain. Henry, we talked about these things before on another show.
Yeah.
The eminent domain, they can say, oh, we got to build a highway through here. So guess what? Guess what happened to your land? You just got it last year.
What's that?
You out of there, right? Right. The second thing they can do is redline you out of your own land. How? Because they redline you in the political system, so that way those who are in the county around you could vote you up out of there. Right? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Right? By city council, by local congressional faction, they could vote you right up out the land next year.
So I
And then the
think
third way is they could just seize the land back through RICO statutes and different criminal aspects, like they tried to do to the Narragansetts over here in Rhode Island. If you guys remember, when they were selling their own cigarettes in their own reservation, the police ran up in there and tried to seize them people off the land for illegally selling cigarettes, when technically the reservation is not part of the United States, where it has to abide by the alcohol, tobacco, and firearm laws.
I know this right here. I want to just express my mind. So if they give me reparation, I think I will be more of a corporate. I will be. I start my own plantation and turn into the city. Most people don't know what a plantation is. We got a video on what's a real plantation. The plantation is the foundation of a city. We see Elon Musk. He moved majority of his operation. He went to Texas. He got his employees to move into that town, and they control all the politics in that area. They could farm the taxes. I'm kind of like that, where more African American or melanated people, people of color, FBA, whatever name you call yourself, would come together. 70 people. It could take 70 families to incorporate some land together and start their own town, start their own
Right.
city, and make laws and make rules for the area. Like, hey, if you, let's say this, the county you live in have 5,000 people in it, 5,000 people, and you go into the area with 500 people. Them 500 people could outnumber that 5,000 people, because that 5,000 people is not a uniform code. They would vote to benefit themselves individually, while you coming with 500 people with the necessary thoughts. So them 500 people like, hey, we vote for your idea. We vote for your idea. We vote for your idea. So that take away what the 5,000 people really matter. And when it also come to that, you could make that county have in its charter that when it comes down to people who was trafficked in that transatlantic traffic ring could be beneficial on land.
See, Henry, that's what we need to do. We need to reestablish the same system that colonized us. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If this is how they colonized us, right? That same methodology, right? So we have to do the same thing because obviously that's how their system works. It's not them. See, this is the problem, I think, with the community itself. Now, I'm not going to say Ghana or West Africa because obviously they ain't got nothing to do with this. But the community itself here in America is we're too focused on trying to stop these people as a people, these individuals, instead of establishing ourselves in their system the way that they establish their self upon us. Because if we do what you said, Henry, and that's and people got to understand this is what they did in Tulsa, in Greenwood, etc. You know, what was the other ones? Rosewood and other places like that they had came in and destroyed. They said that the tariff revenue. Listen, we don't need any actual physical cash because people, we already know, Henry. Henry, did we go over this before on a different show, I believe?
Look.
That they're going to buy a Lamborghini with the money.
Look. If okay, it's like Brazil. Once upon a time in Brazil, the Brazilian government gave a large amount of their population $1 million. $1 million in that currency. 1,000,000 pesos. However, the Brazilian peso, the Brazilian dollars, whatever they call it, they gave it to them. When they gave it to them, that $1 million was not the $1 million we expected. Because of inflation. When we look at monetary value, we looking at inflation. When we should be looking big. We should be looking like the converse of Europe when they left during World War II.
Yep.
Well, we want our labor. You could give me a tractor. You could give me the seeds and the technology it needs for us to grow into a prosperous community.
Right? Henry, let's say this,
I don't need the
right?
money. I need the ideas. I need the techniques.
Let me ask you a question, Henry. Let me ask you a question. So if they gave us for the city like that we're establishing, if they gave us 10 fire trucks, right, of various classes and 7 EMS ambulance and 25 school buses, wouldn't that be a good acquisition for the city, right? Instead of them breaking us with a lump sum check. Especially because we know how corruption moves, etc. We don't know if the people who get the check is going to say, oh, they gave us a $20 million check, but let's tell them they only gave us 5. Yeah. And we're sitting on, and now all of a sudden, me and Henry is sitting on 15 mil between the two of us. And the other 5 mil we put into the city in order for the city to prosper. Or we could just get those vehicles, get and maybe a medevac helicopter, a police helicopter, things like that, Henry, that will help the municipality of the city run. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
This is how we need to be thinking out here. We don't need to be thinking about cashing out with money, cashing out with dollars, because these things is not going to help us. That money is not going to help you establish yourself, because of the fact that people, we believe we'll do the right thing with it, but people also have vices. So we have to use appropriate risk management and understand that if we get the items that we need, the itemized things that we need, then it can't be any corruption involved, because who wants to steal a school bus? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who's going to drive a fire truck around?
Also,
you know what I mean? It prevents.
And it also comes to the idea of the next generation, as to the point that money, like, money is helpful, but if you could produce to the faction that you create your own money, that's best. And I know everybody do not want to be no farmer or anything like that. You can still invest into other people, invest into your community, and your community will invest in you. So when it comes down to reparation, this it needs comprehensive study, because we got to understand is that they shipped Filipinos here to America. They shipped many people here to America. We got gypsies from Europe. Some people DNA, they have Europe in here, and everybody running around here and say that they was graping people and having affairs outside of marriage and stuff. But a lot of the case is there was melanated people who came from Europe. Don't believe it? We could look at Queen Charlotte, and that was the grandmother of Queen Elizabeth. So when people say they have royalty that was melanated, black, however you want to call it, the royal had that. So if a king could fall in love with a melanated woman, where this melanated woman came from? They said she was already there. They said Queen Elizabeth got DNA that traced back to Muhammad family, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them, for people who into the Islamic faith, no disrespect to nobody. But they say that Queen Elizabeth have bloodline to Muhammad and Muhammad. So that's melanated people mixing in with Europeans. So how can we look at the Ghanaians and say, hey, we're going to pay you, when history is all over the place? It's all over the place. You got the first melanated person, the first Negro that died during the American Revolution War. When
Crispus
you look at it,
Attucks.
yes, when you look at his history, He's a Native American.
Yep, he wasn't from Africa.
He was a Native American. They would say his mother was a native. So if his mother was a native, if we go by the one drop rule, he is a native. When you go into the Salem witch trial, the black woman, they show a black woman, they don't show no modern day Native American. They show a black woman. Her name is Tabitha. You can look it up. Tabitha in a Salem witch trial. They say she was married to a man named John Indian.
Yep.
She came from the island, and when you looked at the island,
yeah, she was from Barbados.
Yeah, Barbados. When you look at Barbados and all them islands, they said that they shipped natives from Virginia and shipped them to the island, and natives from the island, they shipped them to the Virginia and upper New England. So
oh yeah, and no, hold on, Henry. Let me get the backstory a little bit too, because I know this. I'm from out here. You know what I mean? Because Salem is in Massachusetts. I've gone there several times in my lifetime. I've gone there. I've gone to the Salem Witch Museum. I've gone to the trails and looked at the historical accounts and everything. And not just in school either. I've gone there with my family as well. So she was actually imported from Barbados. She was bought in Newport, Rhode Island. Because, see, a lot of people don't know that, Henry, that Newport, Rhode Island was a big slave market. It was Newport, Rhode Island was the third biggest city in America until modern times, until after World War I, when slavery stopped.
And most of them slave registration that show that they shipping human trafficking, that they human trafficking individuals at port like Baltimore, Boston, and they shipping them to New Orleans. They
Right.
shipping people.
Or in this case for the Salem witch trials, Tabitha, they were shipping people from Barbados to Rhode Island, and then shipping indigenous people from Rhode Island to Barbados.
Yes. And people gotta also understand, it's like they said Indians had slaves to cover up history. When you look at history and look at the picture, they created a Negro college. They had historic black colleges before they even had a supposed to Native American college.
Henry, I still don't think they have any Native American colleges.
Even when you look at the history, they have African American towns. When you look at Harvard and you digging deep, these colleges been around for a long time. You had black sorority before you had Native American sorority. You had black treaty. You have black empowerment before you had that with the supposed to be Native American, because they fooling you with the paper genocide. They fooling us. It's a lot of things that just make you think. We just here to make you think like Dane Cataway, but we question it. We not dictating to you what to believe.
We're just giving all the avenues of information.
And trying to discuss what is really going on. because we have an area that formerly ended slavery, that made it illegal to have slavery. But in that country, it's corrupt where European is exporting resources out the country. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Where
Not only that,
United
Henry, what
run
else?
among.
What else too? We know that Ghana. Now we're gonna go back to the whole topic, right? To make it come full circle in what we're talking about. We know that Ghana was not a victim of the transatlantic human trafficking rings. Ghana was not a victim. Therefore, I don't believe, and I don't know, and this is an actuality. I'm not saying I have a question on it. If it was a reparation per se, they wouldn't be able to claim any of it, because how would they be able to claim victimization from the transatlantic human trafficking ring when they benefited, like they said, like those people said in the video? Ghana's mad right now because they fumbled the bag. They had a bag already. They got money for that. They just didn't use their money accordingly because their government officials was corrupt and stole all the funds. You know? And they allowed it. That's where you have to come into accountability. That's just like us right now, we the people in America. If Congress gives Trump this 200 billion and we really don't want to be at war with Iran, then we got, as the constituents, have to hold the Congress hostage, in the sense that we got to hold them accountable at the elections later on this year.
Yes, midterm elections.
The midterm elections. That's why, if you notice, Congress been trying to walk on thin ice. They're skating on thin ice because they know they could get took right up out of here. Some of these folks might not be back here in January. You know what I'm saying? So having that understanding, it's the same principle with Ghana. They allowed their corrupt officials to take the money and run. They ain't got no money. Which me and Henry did a show on this too. This is why me and Henry said it was a double-edged sword when all these countries 10 years ago was touting in our face that they was getting all these checks from China. Henry, didn't we do a show on that? We did a show on that like 5 years ago where we were talking about that these African nations keep taking these checks from China thinking that it's an open checkbook and they wasn't going to have to pay it back. Here we are all these years later, and look at them now crying because they got to pay these folks back. You shouldn't have been taking loans out you couldn't afford.
Yes, yes.
And then perpetrating the fraud like you was victims of the transatlantic human trafficking. That's like out of order. That's out of line. That's like people who's not the converts trying to claim reparation checks for the Holocaust. That's like the Germans trying to get reparation checks for the Holocaust.
For real, for real. So let me put this up real quick. The banner. We want to make sure we get this out here for the people who just tuning in. We have a website. You can go to www.newsroom16.com, or you can catch us on TikTok under newsroom_16. And if you have any questions or want to try to come on the show, you can email us at ngawordor at gmail.com, or you can say Naga World Order at gmail.com, or if you would like to donate. So this is how the donation works. You could go on St. Jew website and donate a minimum of $5 to help St. Jude Children Research Center, or you could type donate for St. Jude under $ Newsroom 16 Cash App, and we could help process that at a local charity for St. Jude. Now, make sure you hit the like, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you sub. We ask that a lot because it helps. It's gonna help the algorithm to see. So we'll have more people coming and hit the live chat. We can communicate, ask a question, read the comment, have a discussion. We growing. We heading toward 13K subs. We soon to be monetized. We've been working because never in the working service. And this is one of the topic, one of many that we wanted to discuss. Because it's complicated. Life is complicated because life is not black and white. It's not just something you can say, hey, this is what it is, and that is so. We want to help guide people like, hey, this is just a pathway you can look down. You don't have to go far down this pathway. Just look, ask the question. Why, when you ask a question, the first thing in question is quest. You going on a quest, a venture to find part of the truth so you can put it together to get the facts.
Right.
Facts. You would never know the full truth if you wasn't there at the location, at that place, that time, for that situation. The only thing
Right.
you can't never get the truth out of something like that. You can only get the facts. Our
Right. So
grand, our ancestors know the truth, but we just got facts. We got facts and we got information that can cloud our vision because it paper genocide.
it's like anything in life, Henry. You got to do your due diligence.
Yeah.
You know, you got to cooperate with yourself. You got to have discipline. You got to be able to buckle down and do the research. After you do the research, you got to go out and do the field work. After you do the field work, you got to review what you got and summarize the work. And then you go ahead and you can make an informed decision. But, a lot of people out here is just going based off of blind ignorance or trusting the trends or going off what somebody else told them or going off of pure speculation.
Facts,
You
facts.
can't be using speculation as an answer because speculation is also a question. So we need to step it up as a people, like, because this Ghanaian situation of them trying to claim reparations is clearly, if you ask me, I mean, you can take this as my opinion, and it doesn't reflect Henry's opinion or news. But in my personal opinion, it reflects a form of fraud, if you ask me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm not going to get too deep into that. But that's my personal opinion.
So
I agree with a lot of those people in those videos that that if this was a different scenario, like I said before, if this was the Germans in Germany trying to get reparations for the Holocaust in the World Court, that would never fly.
For real.
That wouldn't even make it past the initial stage. Now, we appreciate that they were able to bring an awareness and a certain classification to the human trafficking ring. But like St. Patrick said before he left, we're prisoners of war. We're not enslaved. We're prisoners of war. There's a difference. We're in an occupied land where our lands are occupied by a foreign entity, which legally in the Black's Law book is a corporation, a corpus, a corpse. We know what a corpse is. So it ain't no need to go deeper than that. Well, so you have to do your due diligence so you have a greater understanding. Remember, this is so they can perpetuate the fraud of a greater expansion of the supremacy. Ghana gotta pay Israel and China back. So they're trying to get this reparation money. See, and tell me, Henry, how does this make sense? Let's make it make sense. There's a point we forgot. You know what I'm saying? That we forgot to point out. If Ghana owes Israel money, right?
Yeah.
Who technically is considered the number one offender of the trafficking ring?
Who they?
United States. United States.
I hit it right on the mark.
So who's gonna have to pay the? So who's gonna have to pay the highest percentage of the reparation?
Yeah.
The United States. Where's that money gonna come from in the United States?
And then the funny thing is like Spain is not in this form of glory. They not producing no gold or currency like that. That's why the EU really wasn't trying to rock with it, but they did what they can. Um, you got France, part of their former self. They getting kicked out of territory that they was just in.
Yep.
So,
Now, Henry, hold on. Now, because you're getting a little too deep. Now, we just said that the United States of America is going to have to pay the majority of this reparation fund, right?
yeah.
Based on percentage of damages, right? Percentage of the damages. Let's just say it like that. Punitive damages. So now, Henry, that's coming from the taxpayer pocket. Number one. Number two, so you mean to tell me we're paying APAC, etc., and all that to pay Israel through our tax money? So we could pay Ghana a reparation check to pay Israel. So that means we might as well be paying Israel again directly 2 times.
For real.
People ain't even looking at it like that, Henry.
It's just like, hey, you owe my brother and you owe me. No, you owe my brother, but you getting the money from me. So I give you the money and you giving it to my brother, and we walking out like, hey, we still good. Just don't make sense.
And then not only that, what if your brother owed you $5 out of that 20?
Oh, let me get that.
So now he only got 15, but you just got your same $5 you just gave up back.
Yes, and it's like you got people here in America not just sitting still saying, hey, thank you, Ghana, for doing this for us. You got people here in America questioning that. You got people here in America don't like that, and then it's to the point that some people like they divide and conquer. Some people believe this is divide and conquer tactic. Like, hey, African America need to be rolling with the Africans and get it through. And it's like some people saying, "F you, it's America." We might don't like the politics about things, but this our nation, born here, raised here, family here, friend here. Who is this person who trying to take out of my pocket because that's taxes? I have friends and family that's mixed, friends that a different race. Would I have to tell them to put a burden on their back? It's complicated. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not agreeing at this moment. I'm just saying, just think about it. That's all you can do at this moment.
I
Think
feel like
about it.
it's where we're at the point that they said during the Joe Biden administration was still in that era of looking into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Henry? I'm not saying that. I'm saying the same thing as you. I'm neutral. I'm with.
Yeah.
We still got to do our research, our due diligence, and it still needs to be looked into.
Like sometimes it might sound like it's a particular way that I go towards, but it's like a debate. I could pick both sides of the debate. You feel? I try to win both sides of the debate. I try to find something in each side that I try to discuss. The bad, the good, the pros, the con. What it's about is mainly trying to give someone an idea without the propaganda. Because
Yep.
when you could diss something and then also give it praise, then they'll look at, oh, you using your right, your freedom of speech. You not scared of some nothing holding you back. We not getting paid for a agenda. We don't have no agenda. The only agenda that we have is never in the working service. We could tell you the bad side and what people believe, what people think. We could ask questions. We could that's what we here for. We not the media per se, but we here on social media. And on social media, we it could have some people out here who tell the truth, let it be known, and put the facts out there. So
Hey, and not only that, you got to remember this too, Henry. Remember this. See, what we're doing here at News for you as the viewers is we're trying to bring comprehensive information from a multifaceted perspective, but not so much a overzealous perspective, right? Because we're not, you see us, me and Henry is melanated, but we're not being gun ho, right? Here we go for the reparations. Because you also have to have an intellect about these kind of things. Because, like Henry said, how is it going to affect the people that we know perpetually? Are they going to, what happens if they pass a reparation, right? They do the figure, and it's somewhere in the ballpark of what John F. Kennedy said. Let's lowball it. So let's say it's in between 6 million and 12 million they owe each, right? Now, what if the plan for the payment schedule is we get a check every month, like a Social Security check or etc., a government check, right? But, however, every American on their payroll check now has to get a certain amount of their money took out. And you know it's going to be another line on your check of the money being taken out. Federal Reparation Fund. Bing. And they're taking that out of everybody in America who works check, the federal government. Now that we say it like that, I bet you everybody in their mind is thinking about a complaint. You got to unmute, Henry.
I also remember, yeah, that is a good idea, and hope people stay away from the liquor store and buying Cadillac.
Look at that.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
But see that. But see, no, listen, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, Henry, because they could put. Now I don't know about the Cadillac part, but the liquor, they could put a whole tax on that, extra tax, because a liquor is not necessary for your everyday well-being, right? So it's a vice. So they could say we're gonna put the reparation tax on liquor and lottery tickets.
Yeah.
You buy your $2 Powerball quick pick, you gotta pay $4 because the other $2 is going to the reparation fund. Because you don't need this Powerball ticket at all. And if you win the Powerball, that $2 extra ain't doing nothing to hurt your pockets.
Facts. So, it's that time. Make sure y'all check out the show, the last show we done, and also this one. Make sure you hit the like, share. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscription button and also hit the bell notification so you'll be up to date to new shows. Please hit the like, because with you hitting the like, we'll hit the algorithm and it'll help us a lot. Now, further ado, I wish y'all a wonderful day, a wonderful good night. Sleep well, sleep tight, wherever part of the world you are in. And catch us the next show. So, Shin, you have something to say?
You already know, my friend. Positive vibe bring positive results. Positive results means you're accomplishing your goals. As long as you're going through a negative circumstance, doesn't mean you can't have a positive outcome. So stay inspired, stay determined, and stay motivated. So get it done. You already know it's no excuses out here in the field.
Yes. Peace, blessing, and good night.